yesterday, before I got cut off, which who knows, maybe I'll get cut off again today, we were looking at Martin's discovery of Cheater's results, where Cheater had, in fact, made a perfect score of never guessing anything right. And the probability of that with these 5 cards is highly suspect. So we're going to see how Martin's friends respond to his observation. And then from there, how will Martin's discovery affect his friends? So let's see what happens. I'm going to pick up from where I left off. I might reread a little just to help us stay focused. But there aren't 25 squares, Torchy said. Right, Flitch said. There are 5. So you'd score 5 out of 25. That's 1 out of 5, or 20%. You'd be right at the average. I took a deep breath. Here it comes. This was the leap of thinking I had to help them make. It was obvious to me, but I was good at math. So was Flinch. Cheater was too, but I knew he wouldn't do anything to help me. Torchy might have trouble following the explanation, but if I could convince the others, he'd go along with them. Now, I said, looking at Cheater, is there any way to make sure you'd get a lower score? Can you think of anything you could do to make sure you'd only get 4 right, or 3, or 2? You could, Torchy started to say. Then I guess he stopped to think. Cheater remained silent. So did Lucky. Can't be done, Flinch said. There's no way to average less than 5 hits in the long run. Whether you just said square each time or if you mix them up, you'd still hit 1 out of 5 in the long run, no matter what. So, I said, not taking my eyes from Cheater, how could someone miss every card, not just in one test, but 6 times in a row? That's impossible, Flinch said. You'd have to get some of them right just by chance. As Flinch spoke, Cheater looked away from me. Unless you knew what the right answer was, I said. If you knew the right answer, but you wanted to prove you didn't, it would be easy to get every answer wrong. Easy, but not a good way to hide your ability. Mr. Briggs was interested in kids who got more than 5 right. He didn't bother to look at the other side, kids who got less than 5. I held up the printout and pointed to Cheater's score. Wow, you're right, Flinch said, grabbing the printout from my hand. It would be impossible to miss everyone unless you knew what the right answers were. Maybe, just maybe, you could miss all the cards on one test, but on every test? Give me a break. Even Torchy saw that I was right. Cheater, you can read minds. Cheater shook his head. No, I can't. Mr. Briggs didn't say anything. He would have said something. Mr. Briggs was looking for hits, not misses, I said. You should be glad he was. If he noticed your score, he'd have known right away that something was wrong. But, Cheater looked around the room, Lucky, you don't believe this nonsense, do you? Lucky just shrugged. Flinch, Cheater said, you can't swallow this stuff. Makes perfect sense to me, Flinch said. Numbers don't lie. Cheater turned to Torchy. Come on, Torchy, he said. At least you believe me. I can't read minds, and even if I could, I'd never tell anyone about your secret hiding place. Torchy gasped. How'd you know? That's just what I was thinking. He stared at Cheater for a moment, then looked around at the rest of us. I was worried that Cheater would read my mind and know where I had hid my favorite comics. I could see it in their faces. They believed. Torchy was sure now. There was no doubt in his face, just wonder and amazement, the same with Lucky and Flinch. I watched Cheater. I expected him to be angry or happy. Instead, he looked like he was about to cry. I don't want to be different, he said quietly. But you are, I told him. Hey, everyone's different in some way, right? Not this different, Cheater said. No choice, Flinch told him. You are what you are. You gotta live with it. How will Martin's discovery affect his friends? What are you thinking now? There's this guy in town, Cheater said. Everyone called him Crazy Wally. He walked around talking to himself. He heard voices. People laughed at him. Kids teased him. One day, the voices told him to get even. He killed 3 people before the police shot him. Cheater stared right at me. I'm not crazy. Hey, nobody said you were. I began to understand his anger and fear. You don't hear voices. You aren't walking around talking to yourself. That's not what it's like, is it? Cheater shook his head. He started to speak again, but it took several tries. I didn't want to believe it. He looked down at the floor. We all waited quietly. Finally, he went on. Sometimes I guess I just know stuff. It's not like I hear it. I can't pick through people's brains. I guess I only get what someone is actually thinking. It's like their thoughts show up in my mind. Like a memory? I asked. Yeah, that's it, Cheater said. But I know stuff on my own, too. I'm really smart. Ask me anything at all. Hey, relax. We know you're smart, I told him. You're probably the smartest kid I've ever met. Cheater smacked his leg with his fist. But sometimes I can't tell it apart, the stuff I learned and the stuff that pops up. So you're not even sure where it's coming from, I said. That explains his problems in school. When you're taking a test, you think the ideas are from your own mind. You don't hear the thoughts of the kid next to you. The thoughts are just there in your mind. Yeah, I guess. Flinch started to laugh. What's so funny? Cheater asked. All your life. You've never cheated, right? Flinch asked. Cheater nodded. Never. Not until the experiment. So after all that, after a whole lifetime of being honest, when you finally decide to cheat, you're so bad at it, you get caught right away. Flinch rolled on the floor, laughing so hard he started to gasp for breath. Cheater laughed too. Then his face grew serious and he looked around the room. I don't try to spy on anyone. I really don't. We know, Lucky said. He put a hand on Cheater's shoulder. I trust you. Hey, don't worry, Torchy said. We aren't afraid of you or nothing. Honest. You aren't crazy, and you aren't the only one with special powers, I said. They all turned back to me. I felt like I was jumping out of another plane. You aren't going to start that again, are you? Torchy asked. No, I said. I'll just sit here and let you set your chair on fire. I pointed towards his left hand. Youch! Torchy jumped up from his seat. On the arm of the chair, where he'd rested his fingers against the wood, a smoldering spot gave off a small wisp of smoke. Who did that? You did, Torchy, I said. Somehow, you can start fires. There's no other explanation. Torchy stepped away from his chair as the glowing area dimmed and then vanished, leaving a charred blotch. He didn't say anything. I turned toward Flinch. What do I have to do? Throw stuff at you? Come on, Flinch. This is the time. Cheater has stopped lying to himself. So has Torchy. Well, as you just said, you gotta learn to live with it. You're right. And I guess I gotta talk about it. Stuff speeds up sometimes, Flinch said. I see something about to hit me, so I jump out of the way. Then everything slows down until the world catches up. But I've already gotten out of the way. That's how it's been my whole life. I figured it was kind of like that for everyone. Or else I was some kind of freak. You're seeing into the future, I told him. Not very far, but definitely into the future. That's why you always have the flipper ready in time when you play pinball. No, that can't be it. Flinch stopped. He couldn't seem to think up another explanation. And you have a talent for finding things, I told Lucky. I'm not sure what it means. Maybe you sense the objects, or maybe you sense some sort of mark left on the object by the owner. I don't know, but it sure isn't a skill everyone has. Lucky shrugged. I've always figured I was just lucky. You are, I said. You all are. As much as I should have been thrilled that they finally believed me, there was a sad side I couldn't ignore. I guess I felt left out. They had these wonderful abilities. I had nothing. But at least I could help one more person, someone I treated pretty rottenly. There are others, I said. Who? Lucky asked. Well, I'm not positive in some of the cases, but there's one person I'm absolutely sure about. Hang on. I'll go get him. I went down the hall and knocked on Trash's door. What? He asked when I stepped inside. There are some kids down the hall who want to meet you, I said. Is this your idea of a joke, he asked. No joke, I said. Promise. Why would they want to meet me, he asked. Let's just say you have a lot in common. I turned toward the door, then stopped. Well? Trash shrugged and got up. I could understand that he'd want to be cautious, but as he crossed the room, I thought I saw the slightest hint of a smile on his lips. Unfinished letter from Dorothy Anderson. Dear Martin, I'm sorry I didn't write sooner. The house feels different without you here. Everyone misses you, especially your sister. Your father misses you too, of course. Part 3. Powers. I'm not sure how far I'll get in this chapter, but I just can't resist the need to start it. Now what? The others accepted Trash pretty quickly. I guess it wasn't hard for them to realize they shared a rare and common bond, especially Torchy and Trash, since the two of them had the most destructive powers. They'd gotten into the most trouble.